Watching people that I love make relationship decisions that undermine their relationships. And look, we've done this, and I'm going to make a couple jokes, and you're going to laugh, but the truth is, these are things that we've done too. So like, you know this, so when you watch someone that you care for a lot, and they're getting ready to lie to someone that they love, or they're getting ready to do something really stupid, and you're standing back going, can you not see how much of a train wreck this is going to be? Can you not see how much this is going to destroy your relationship or undermine your relationship? And you're standing back watching that person make the decision. Well, the truth is, this is stuff that's really easy to see in other people, but sometimes it's hard to see in the mirror. Because we make these silly, dumb relationship decisions too. And they're all really based on these big myths that I think operate in the backs of our minds. All of us have these weird assumptions and presuppositions about relationship that we don't think about all that much, but they fuel the way we relate to each other, especially in the dating world, especially in dating and in marriage and in relationship with people for the ever after. There's two big myths that I think fuel some foolishness that all of us find ourselves in. And the first one is the right person myth. Now, hear me out, especially y'all that are dating. This is not saying there's not a right person for you, okay? This isn't saying the right person doesn't exist. What I mean is, a lot of us think that once we find the right person, everything will be all right. And everybody that's married chuckled. I heard it. It was under your breath and you were scared your spouse was going to hear it, but you chuckled, okay? Because those of us that are married long enough know this is not true. See, we do this thing where we think, okay, I can be a mess, and I can be unkind, and I can be crazy, and I can be upside down, but as soon as I meet the right person, I'm going to be the gentleman that God created me to be, and I'm going to be the lady that God created me to be, and all my insecurity, and all of my scariness, and all of my foolishness, all that's just going to wash away. Like we get this thing in our head, and you've done this, don't laugh, but like you think you're going to meet that right person, and like the light's going to shine down from heaven, and a rainbow's going to appear, and the romantic music's going to kind of play in the background, and something's going to like magically happen to you where you're going to be perfect forever, right? And then all the stuff that's broken in you is just going to go away. We do that, right? When the truth is, a lot of times with our brokenness and all the stuff we bring into trying to find the right person ain't looking for us, right? Because we bring all this stuff, and we think that we're going to meet someone who's going to make us all better, but that's just not how it works. And the hilarious thing is, this is the kind of stuff that fuels our dreams. It fuels our fantasies, right? We fantasize about finding the right person, but we never fantasize about becoming the right person, right? We never fantasize about changing and growing to be the right person that the person we're looking for is looking for. It's hilarious to me because we have this thing in our head where we think like, again, as soon as I meet the right person, everything's going to be just fine, and everything's going to work out, and everything's going to be just exactly the way that I want. And it's hilarious to me that we think that that is out there, and we operate that way. We date that way. We look for a relationship in that way. We treat our husbands and our wives that way. And y'all, that doesn't work. That's just not true. All of this stuff kind of brings me to the mind that we need to figure out that we need to become the right person, right? We need to become the right person. But this is not the only one. The second one I think is just as funny. It's called the promise myth. And this is the one that those of you who are engaged or just got married or you're looking towards marriage, this is the one that I think will hit you closest to home. We think that all we got to do is make a promise and have a party and relationship will work. Right? I just got to say I do. I got to have a vow. We're going to have a cake, and there'll be some lights, and then our relationship will be happily ever after. And again, all the married people in the room chuckle because it's just not how it works. We think that a promise replaces the need for preparation. We think that, like, I can just promise my way into this relationship thing. All I got to do is look at my boyfriend and my girlfriend and say, look, I promise I am yours. And then keep on being the jerk that I am. That's not how it works. We know this in every other circle of life, though. If you think about this, you know this in the way that you work. Imagine this for a minute. Your boss comes into your office and says, I need you to finish this presentation by the end of the day. And you go, I promise I will. And then you never do anything. Are you going to keep your job when he comes in the next day and you don't have it done? No. Or at least you're going to get in trouble. We know about this in academics. For those of you that are college students, if your professor says, hey, there's going to be a test on Tuesday, and you say, I promise that I'll prepare, and then you don't do anything, you may pass just out of sheer luck, but that would be all that it is. We know about this in every circle of life. Look, we know about this in athletics too. Athletes don't promise to win games. Athletes prepare to win games. Think about Tua for a minute. Tua, did he promise, did he win a lot of football games and wow the football world because he loves football and he made a promise to love football? No, right? Tua prepared to win football games. Tua wowed the football world because he was intentional with his preparation, not because he loved football. I love football. Some of you all might like football, but I can't throw the football 50 yards, and neither can you. Tua prepared. He was intentional. He wanted to win. Now, here's the hilarious thing. Somebody actually asked him once. This is a direct quote, and I think this is phenomenal. Right after the national championship game, they said, Tua, what's your secret? What is it that makes you you? How do you click? How are you so good? And he says this, my poise comes from my faith. I just prayed, and throughout the game, I was praying. That's it. So guys, y'all's golf game, you know why it stinks so much? You just ain't praying enough. You're just not praying enough. Y'all know why your tennis game is so terrible? You're just not praying enough. He just plays, and then he prays, and that's it. That's all. Come on. Y'all, we know better than that, right? No, look, I'm not saying don't pray. I'm not saying prayer is not important. Prayer is very important, but we all know that that's not what he did. He doesn't just pray and play. Tua prepared to win. And I think that we should prepare to win relationally. We can't just expect the right person to come along and that our happily ever after will just happen when we haven't been intentional, when we haven't thought about love, when we haven't thought about doing the right things and preparing to win. We have to prepare to win relationally. Now, if you're dating, you've got lots of practice ahead of you. If you're already married, you can still prepare to win. You just have to do it after the game has already started. We need to prepare to win. I need to say this, I think this is kind of important because one of the funny things that we do is we make these promises and then we think that everything's going to be just fine, that everything's going to work out. Look, saying I do does not make you capable. Saying I do only makes you accountable. All right? All of you that are dating and engaged, write that down in your little notebooks, okay? Because this is important. As someone who's been married over 10 years, I can tell you, saying I do does not make you capable. It only makes you accountable. And when you are accountable and not capable, you are eventually miserable. You are eventually miserable because you don't know what to do. You're accountable for something you're not capable to live into. You've put yourself in a contract or in a relationship that you can't live into, and you're not capable. And when you're accountable and not capable, you become miserable. And that's what leads to failed relationship. That's what leads to brokenness. That's why marriages fall apart. That's why a lot of times you meet the right guy, you meet the right girl, and your relationship doesn't work out because you don't know how to be capable of relationship. True, lasting relationship. Now, I love all this because this is really important. That means that we have to prepare to win relationally. You have to prepare. You have to be intentional. So everybody else in the world is working to get better in bed. You're going to be working to be better a person. Awkward pause. Right? You're going to be working to become the person God created you to be rather than working at what culture says to do. You're going to become the man, the lady that God created you to be. You're going to work on what we call these sweet skills. You see, I think following Jesus, a lot of us think that following Jesus means that it's going to make life better. But I honestly think following Jesus makes us better at life. And I know that sounds like a slight change, but it's a big deal. Following Jesus makes us better at life. It gives us a place to learn. It gives us a place to grow. It makes us better at living in this world that is so messed up for us sometimes. It gives us consistency when we don't have consistency, but it also teaches us the skills we need to relate to one another. See, I think, and I can say this because I work for a church, but the church, the big church, we make all this really complicated. Around the world, every church you've ever go to, a lot of times we make this really complicated. We make following Jesus about rules and regulations and how you dress and how you act and what you say and what you sing. And there's some stuff that's important, but Jesus himself came along and he said, I'm going to make it really, really simple. I'm going to lead you towards some place that's demanding, but I'm going to lead you towards some place that's fulfilling and unbelievably awesome. And here's what he said. This is awesome. You see, so Jesus had just been approached by these people who were asking him, what's the most important thing? What are we supposed to do more than anything else? How do we live into the kingdom? And they were tested and they were asking him, what does the life of following you into your kingdom really look like? And he said, this is it. You got all these rules, you got all these regulations, this is it. My command is this. Love each other as I have loved you. That's it. And they're like, well, Jesus, is there more? Is there another slide? Is there another statement? Is there something else? No. My command is this. Love each other as I have loved you. And that's it. Period. Now, here's the rub. Those of us that are actually curious about now living into this right now, if you're convinced enough that this is what Jesus asked us to do, the gears in your mind might be turning, how do I do that? Well, I think we have to read the fine print. And again, hear me out. I'm not saying this is gotcha fine print, okay? This is not the place where you're going to find the contract that's going to get you, in trouble, or it's going to have the thing that you've signed your life away to. No, I mean the fine print that will make you fine. The fine print that will make you better at life. And what I love is, this is something that's really important for us. We think so many times that we're supposed to use dating as like hunting, that it'll like out on the hunt to try to find the right person, just reel them in, or get the kill or whatever. I don't know. But the truth is, romance is fueled by exclusivity, not experience. So y'all start filling in whatever blanks you need to fill in with that statement, okay? Romance is fueled by exclusivity, not by experience. It's about taking all these things that God said love looked like, that we've got written down for us, that we've talked about for centuries, and putting them into practice with one person. It's fueled by exclusivity, by having focus with one person, by relating to them in this amazing, wonderful way that God left behind for us. It's not by experience. It's not by going out and just having a laundry list of boyfriends and girlfriends that you can go through to say, well, I learned a little bit here and I learned a little bit there. That's not how romance works. Looking into the eyes of someone that you love and loving them in the way that God has taught you to love them will change relationship for you forever. And for those of us that are married, I guarantee you that you stood at the altar or the courthouse or wherever it was, and you looked into the eyes of the person you were about to marry, the man or the woman that you loved with all of your heart, and you never in a million years looked into their eyes and thought to yourself, I want to screw this up. I want to make this bad. I want this to fall apart. You weren't thinking that. It doesn't mean that it won't happen, but you weren't thinking that there. And I think it's because we understand this, that romance is fueled by exclusivity and not experience. We just don't practice it. We don't put this into motion. So I want to tell you something really quick before we begin. This changed the way that I read the New Testament. And it really changed the way I read the entire Old Testament and New Testament together. All the letters that Paul wrote, all of the Gospels. It just changed the way that I looked at things. To think about the fact that Paul's imperatives, like his commands, the things that he writes down in all of his letters, they're just applications of Jesus' new command to love each other as I have loved you. When Paul tells someone to act a certain way or to do a certain thing, he's applying Jesus' command of love each other as I have loved you. And that's it. It's that simple. So the way we relate to each other is in love. The people that are closest to us, the people that are adrift from us, and everything in between. Love each other as I have loved you. And so if you look throughout the New Testament at some of the things that Paul wrote about love and some of the things that he said, and you start thinking about it in this line that okay, every application and every command and everything that Paul is saying, it's just to get me to love people like Jesus loved us. It opens the door to you. It opens God's word to you in a way that maybe you weren't even possibly expecting could happen. And that's what I think happens to me when I look at this passage I want to share with you all today. And look, if you've ever been to a wedding before, you've heard this verse, and we quote it out of context in a lot of different ways. A lot of times, we pastors love to read it out loud and stand in front of people and say it. And a lot of times, we're reading these words thinking, y'all ain't going to do this. But we'll pray that you do anyway. And it's 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Y'all know this, okay? When Paul began to say what love is, he was thinking about God's love in Jesus. The very first thing he said is love is patient. Love is patient. I like to think about it that love is not pushy. Love looks at the person that you love, right? The way love works is that it decides to move at the same pace as the person that you love. It's a decision to pause rather than to push. To say, are we good? Are we moving at the right pace? Are we understanding each other? Are we moving together? Am I accommodating your pace? Because the thing is, all of us have our own pace, and it's natural to. You've done this, where you walk around, you're like, well, you're going so slow, and you think everybody should move at your pace. Well, that's because your pace is natural to you. And if God loved us in a way that made us move at His pace, we would not be able to withstand His revelation and His love and everything else. It would be crazy. And so God said, I love you patiently, so love each other patiently. God accommodates to our capacity. He accommodates to our capacity. And I think with our boyfriends, our girlfriends, our husbands, our wives, we need to accommodate to the capacity of the people that we love. We need to step back and say, are we together? Are we moving together? Are we understanding each other? Am I pushing you? Are you pushing me? Now, we know the second one too. So anybody know this one? Love is patient, love is kind, right? Love is kind. I love this term because a lot of times I'm going to guess a lot of you in the room kind of thought like love is weakness. Like as soon as you heard this love is kind, you thought kindness is weakness. But the truth is, I think the best definition I've ever heard for kindness is this: showing others they are valuable by how you treat them. Showing others they are valuable by how you treat them. Now, believe it or not, those of you that have kids checked into children's church right now, they're learning this over there. So parents, if y'all can't get this and your kids can, you know. But there's another one that I like as well, and it's really just understanding that unkindness is weakness. Okay? We think being kind is weak because that means we have to defer. No, unkindness is weakness because unkindness says you can't control yourself. You can't control what you say. You can't bridle your tongue. As my mama would say, you can't hush when you're supposed to. And you can't control yourself. Unkindness is weakness. Looking at someone to put them down is weakness. It's weakness. I like it thinking about it this way. Kindness is loaning someone your strength rather than reminding them of their weaknesses. Married couples, let me pick on you all for a minute because I'm in that camp. Husbands, what is your go-to reaction when you see weakness in your wife? What is your go-to reaction when you see weakness in your wife? Is it to snipe at her? Or is it to loan her your strength? Wives, what is your go-to reaction when you see weakness in your husband? Is it to to goad at him and pick on him and say, ha? Or is it to loan your strength to him in that moment? See, I think, again, we have to be very careful about our go-to response to weakness. Now, if you're dating, all right, for y'all that are dating, ears perk up for a minute. If you're dating somebody that their constant reaction to your weakness is to put you down and to laugh about it, feel free to text them a breakup text right now and tell them your pastor said to do it, okay? Go ahead and do that. I'll take the blame for you. You do not be in a relationship where they do this to you. What is their go-to response to your weakness? Is it to build you up? Is it to loan you their strength? Is it to be there as a supportive force for you in your weak moments? Or is it to be a part of the chaos that has brought you down? Here's what I love. This is exactly what God did for us. While we were still sinners, while we were still lost, while we were still broken, God sent Jesus. Not when we had everything figured out, not because we were the right person, but because we needed Him. We were weak, and He became our strength. The gift of Jesus is God's go-to response to our weakness. And He says love like that. It's that simple. Go love like that. Husbands, love your wives that way. Wives, love your husbands that way. Boyfriends, girlfriends, love each other like that. Don't snipe at each other. Don't be unkind. Control your tongue. Bridle your personality and lean in. See, that's what I love. This is really, again, if you want to sum up the New Testament and the Old Testament together, it's God's way of leaning in and speaking our language softly and patiently. The entire redemption story, the gift of Jesus from the moment we all, when brokenness entered the world and sin came along and all of us were a mess, that whole story can be summarized with God leaning in, responding to our weakness with patience and speaking a language that we can understand. Now, He's not done. Paul's not finished because then he gives us what we call kind of the toxic trio. Right? These are the three things that love is not. Love does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. These three are really important, again, for those of you that are dating. I want you to think about these for a minute and write these down, okay? Because these are something that I want you to look for in the person that you're dating. And if you're married, you can work on these things. If you have these in your life, you can work on not having them anymore. But here's the truth. If you don't feel good about yourself, it's really hard to let others feel good about themselves. And the truth is that we find ourselves kind of stepping into the spotlight when it should belong to the person that we love, or boasting about ourselves, or being envious of some kind of credibility that they have that we don't. There's something wrong in us. There's something broken in us. If there's a moment where someone that you love dearly is experiencing the spotlight, and all you can think to do is elbow them out so you can stand there in their stead, there's something broken in you. And if you're dating somebody or married to somebody who's doing that, you owe it to yourself to have a conversation with them so that they will realize the brokenness in them and maybe work on it. I want you to pay close attention to your internal reaction to the success of the people closest to you. Pay particular attention to your internal reaction to the success of other people. Again, if somebody that you love or somebody near you, they make it on TV, they pass the test with flying colors, they get the job, whatever it is, and your first reaction is like, and you just kind of ball up. And you want to push them out of the spotlight so that you can have the spotlight instead. If you're envious, if something inside you is just drawn to just bitterness because of their success, you got something to work on. And if you're dating somebody like that, you need to pay very close attention to their internal reaction to your success, because that's not something that just magically goes away. It doesn't just end. Love defers. Right? Love defers. Love says, you deserve the spotlight. Let me step back and let you have the glory, because that's what God did to us. Again, think about this for a minute. If God had stepped in and pointed his finger at us in all of our broken mess, would we really love him and follow Jesus the way that we're called to do today? No, of course not. He stepped back. He lifted us up. The other thing that I think about is honor. And 1 Corinthians lifts this up as well. It's really good. Love does not dishonor others. And friends, we don't talk about honor enough in our culture today. We just don't. We don't spend a lot of time talking about what it looks like to honor one another. But I think we need to understand that love does not behave disgracefully. It does not dishonorably. It is not indecent. I like to put it this way. Love does not create regret. Love does not create regret. Guys, do you have any idea how unique you would be if you just said right now, for the rest of my life, I will never be another woman's regret? Do you have any idea how unique you would be in our culture today if you said, I will never be another woman's regret? So we need to think about honor. We need to think about what it means for us to have a reputation. But simultaneously, we need to think about the honor of other people. We need to think about the honor of other people. What is it that my behavior is doing to the person that I love? What is it that my feelings and my character and the way that I'm expressing myself is doing to the person that I love? Think about this, husbands and wives, for a minute. Again, do you think about lifting up your spouse, or do you think about putting them down? Do you do that thing, like you're out in public, and somebody like compliments your husband, and you're like, well, yeah, but you didn't see him yesterday, the big bonehead. Do you do that? Is that your first reaction to someone being bragging on your husband? Same thing. If someone is bragging on your wife, is your first reaction to try to point out something she didn't do right, something you're not happy with, something that frustrates you, or can you celebrate your spouse? I like the way Paul puts it in his letter to the Philippians. He says, in humility, value others above yourselves. This does not say that they are more valuable than you. This says that you have made the conscious decision to value someone above yourself. In God's eyes, all of us are equal. In God's eyes, all of us have the same amount of value. But the way to love the way God loves is to decide intentionally that you're going to value someone else above yourself. You're going to lift your spouse up. You're going to lift your boyfriend up. You're going to lift your girlfriend up. You're going to place them on the pedestal. And you're going to honor them. Not because they're more valuable than you, but because this is the way God loves you. God loved us enough in Jesus to come in humility and value us above himself. To give the greatest gift the universe has ever received so that we can be made whole. I mean, this is literally exactly what God did for us. And he just says, go do the same thing. Love each other as I have loved you. It's that simple. It's that simple. I want you to think about this for a minute, because I think this is really funny. Imagine this scenario for a minute. You get invited out to dinner by someone that you really admire, an athlete, a coach, an actor, an actress, a famous musician, a politician you really respect. I'm sure they're out there somewhere. Somebody that you really admire. They invite you out to dinner, right? What would you do? You would bring the best version of you, right? You know how to do this. You would think about all of those things that you normally do that would embarrass you in front of that person, and you wouldn't do them, would you? And you know what that list is. We talk about this all the time. You can put yourself together in public really well, but sometimes the rest of your life is a mess. I think about like trying to get, when my wife and I are trying to get our 4 children out the door to get to anywhere, it's a hot mess before we get out the door, but then we put our smile on, and we got our pretty clothes, and everybody in the Oakley house has got it all put together, right? We know how to do this, but it's funny that sometimes we do this with people that we, like famous people or people that we admire, but we don't do it with the people we love the most. If you were going out with somebody who you admired, who had power, who was famous, you would bring the best version of you. And if they showed up late, what would you do? Oh, Coach Saban, listen, you were 10 minutes late and my time is money, so I'm out. Sorry, no more time for you. No, you wouldn't do that. You would defer. You'd say, the honor is all mine. I'm so grateful to be with you today. Don't worry about it. It's just fine. You would bring the best version of you because that's how you show honor to the person you were with. But here's what we do. Boyfriends, girlfriends, perk up your ears. Husbands and wives who have been married for a while, perk up your ears because this is what we do. We do this thing where we treat people with unkindness. The people that we love, our spouses, our wives, our husbands, our boyfriends, our girlfriends, we treat them so terribly that eventually they begin to feel dishonorable. We don't treat them with honor and respect, so eventually they have a feeling of dishonor. And again, this is the other part of the sermon, that if you're dating somebody right now who constantly makes you feel dishonorable, tell them your pastor said to break up and text them now. Married couples, if you, in your relationship with one another, are constantly making each other feel dishonorable, work on this. But for those of you that are still in the dating game, dating's supposed to be practice. Again, we make dating like it's hunting, right? And you're supposed to get as many kills as you can or whatever. That's not what dating is. Dating is supposed to be practice of all of these skills. And so here you go. You're probably saying like, wait, time out. Drew, this is crazy. You're telling me that I'm supposed to go out on a date with somebody, and I'm supposed to defer to them, and I'm supposed to laugh at his dumb jokes, and I'm supposed to lift her up and brag on her, and then I'm supposed to take her home at 8:30 so she can get in bed on time to go to work the next day, and I'm supposed to move at their pace, and I'm supposed to be really slow, and I'm supposed to take my time and do everything the way that they would like it done, and you're thinking, this sounds like the worst date ever. And you're right, it does. Because again, we have been reared in a culture where dating is all about hunting, not preparing. It's not about practice for long-term relationship, when it should be. Dating, seeking, is about practicing these life skills, these love skills that God has given us, so that when your long-term relationship comes along, you're ready. You're ready. This is how you become a better person, how you become the person worth looking for. This is how you become the person worth staying for. And married friends, this is how you become the person that the person you married was hoping you would be. By putting this practice of love in place. But the truth is, when we all got married, we weren't thinking this. We're standing at the altar and we're looking at each other's eyes and we're thinking about the dinner and the party and the honeymoon and all the great stuff that comes along. And we're not thinking about, have we prepared ourselves for a long-term relationship? I want you to win relationally. God wants you to win relationally, but you have to put in the work. You have to practice. You have to prepare. And again, all of us married people, we got married and we thought, you know what, I'm going to marry the right person and they're never going to require me to be patient because they're just going to be perfect. And again, did you hear the snickers from the married people around the room just now? Because I did. All right, they're going to be so perfect when I marry them, it won't require me to be patient. I won't have any reason to be patient. They're going to be awesome. It's not true. It's just not true at all. We think we're going to find the right person, everything's going to work out just great, and I won't have to worry about being unkind. I don't want to have to be worried about being, envious and boastful. They're just going to make me better. It's not how it works. It's not how it works. And let me say this. You don't have to listen to me. I can't make you do this. Again, God's moving at our pace. He's not going to make you do this either. So you can go out there, those of you that are dating, and you can date somebody and you can say, I'm going to be unkind and I'm going to be boastful and I'm going to be envious. I'm going to put myself out there and I'm going to keep doing all these things and wait for the right person to come along. But the truth is, if you keep doing that, the right person ain't looking for you. And you're going to miss them. So here's what I would encourage you to do. There's 2 things. And you have to agree to do these 2 things before I tell you what they are. So everybody say yes. Only like half of y'all nodded. I'm so disappointed. 2 things that I want you all to do, okay? The first one is I want you to go get a Bible or a Bible app, or I want you to Google this, and I want you to go to 1 Corinthians chapter 13, and I want you to read 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 7. I would encourage you to read the whole chapter if you want, but if you're like, I only read 3 words a day, read these, okay? I won't judge. It's all good. But read these words. And in fact, if you're dating somebody, sit down and read these words with them in your mind. Sit alone and read these words in your mind and think to yourself, which one of these should I be working on? Am I patient enough? Am I kind enough? Am I envious? Am I boastful? Am I putting myself in the spotlight? But the second thing I want you to do is I want you to go through these discussion questions. And here's the cool thing. If you're dating somebody, go do these questions with them and make them answer too. We're going to post these on our social media after church, so you don't have to try to write them down really quick. You can photograph them with your phone if you want, but we're going to post these on Facebook after. Like, if you're married, go out to dinner today, maybe after you have dinner, and go through these questions with your spouse. Dating, same thing. Listen to what these are. Number 1, if a promise is no substitute for preparation, what can you do beginning today to prepare yourself to be successful relationally? Number 2, where do you have work to do? Patience, kindness, public celebration of others, honor. And number 3, this is the big one. When you think about dinner with a favorite actor, actress, or recording artist, what would you remind yourself not to do or to say that you typically do or say? And then maybe jot those things down and decide not to do them anymore. All right, so I'm going to pray for us. I want to pray for your Valentine's Day. I want to pray for us relationally as people, as a church, as a community, and then we'll close out our time together. So would you bow your heads with me, please? God, you make things so easy. You make things so easy for our relationship with you. All you ask us to do is to say yes. And you're patient, and you're kind, and you're not envious, and you don't boast, and you move at our pace, and you come and descend into our mess and lift us up, because that's the love that you have for us. So God, help all of us relationally to have that same love for others. Help us to love others as you've loved us, to love our spouses that way, to love our boyfriends and girlfriends that way, to reach out to those people that are closest to us that way. Because that's what you taught us to do, and that's what you asked us to do. So give us the strength and the boldness to live that way. We ask all these things in Jesus' precious name. Amen.